Well, good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. Welcome to another 1 Million Cups. We are blessed to come to you every week showcasing entrepreneurs from all over the area. And today is no exception. So we are part of the ecosystem here in Ohio. And so we always love the uniqueness that Ohio has to offer. So we got a special treat for you today. So we'll introduce our presenter here in just a little bit, but just wanted to kind of give you a little bit the brief overview of what 1 Million Cups is. So 1 Million Cups is an organization that is nationwide in over 160 cities across the country. It is powered and caffeinated, as we say, by the Kauffman Foundation, which is one of the largest entrepreneurial support network systems out there. It was created by Ewing Marion Kauffman in 1966 with a $2 billion, with a B, dollar endowment. And the vision that Ewing had back then was to help raise the tide for all the boats, and that when everybody participates, everybody wins. And so the way of doing that was helping with everybody get introduced to entrepreneurship and have that opportunity, if they so choose, as a path for themselves. So for years, the Kauffman Foundation has been doing lots of support systems and educational series and things all across the country, working with a lot of universities on platforms and seminars and all that. And in 2012, the grassroots effort was created by the inner people at Kauffman. They kind of spun out this experiment to get people together over cups of coffee, and what happens when you get 1 million entrepreneurs, together over cups of coffee. So that was the dream. So we're, happy to contribute to that each week and bring in unique entrepreneurs, unique businesses, unique stories, and hopefully you get to learn from them. You get to hear what's going on right in your backyard. Or all across the country, and you get to interact. So that was the premise of it. So it's not like a typical pitch event or anything like that. It's literally a presentation, a short story share about awesome people building companies and enterprises all over. So let's go around the people that are joining us. And if you wish, if you're watching live on Facebook, you're welcome to join us live on the Zoom call. You can simply go to Columbus, mc.com, and there will be a link right there that you can pop right on and join us and ask the questions of the presenter live. So we'll try to monitor Facebook for any questions out there as well, but you are welcome to join directly on the Zoom. But Mark, George, you guys want to take it away here?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go around the room and introduce each other, I just, everyone take a moment and think about your friends that may have celebrated 420 Day a little too much and woke up wondering what happened with all the snow around them. So, thoughts and prayers. So we're going to start up in Cleveland with someone who's been joining us every week since last year, since last March. So Andrew, I think you've been with us about a year.
I have, and thanks for always welcoming me. And one of these days, maybe we'll actually get to do it in person somewhere. So I think at least the four faces I see know my interests, well, except for Joe, I know my interest. I'm a retired lawyer, and since I've been retired, I've been very involved with voting rights, and now very involved with watching what the Ohio legislature is threatening to do with restricting voter rights. So I'm watching that closely. And also one other thing they're doing is looking to restrict how we can protest peacefully. So I'm watching both those things, and that's what I do.
Andrew, thank you for doing that, by the way.
Steve will tell us a little bit more about 1 Million Cups, but it is completely organizer-led. Andrew has been an organizer for the Cleveland chapter for years. The rest of us have been organizing here almost since the beginning. Steve has been here since the very beginning, but George and I were able to join up as organizers shortly thereafter in December of 2018, and we're glad to be here. We're organizers. It's a completely volunteer led organization. We do it because we enjoy every week hearing the stories of what people are up to, what they're building, and why they're doing what they're doing. So I'm Mark Doyle. I'm the CTO for Honest Jobs. We help people with criminal records find employment fast. And I'll turn it over to George.
I wasn't ready. I'm talking to my daughter's teacher.
You look
Sorry,
busy.
but-
That's why I did it.
I know, man. It's funny. It's funny. It doesn't just snow, it pours. See what I did there? I'm wondering, I'm hoping everybody's okay. This has been an interesting past 24 hours, to be sure. I was pretty humored yesterday when I asked my my Google Assistant, what the forecast was for yesterday. And it told me, a high of 61, low of 43. There's going to be scattered clouds and snow showers tomorrow. And your calendar today. And I said, wait a minute, whoa, go back. Did you say snow showers tomorrow? So it was just a testament to the schizophrenic Ohio weather that people have been telling me about. Like Mark, I too joined the Columbus ecosystem here in July of 2018. I think Mark beat me out by like one MC presence. We both got here when the chapters first stood up. I think Mark, you got to land in the first ever meeting. I was still moving in or something, so I got in on the second one. But yeah, we're both previous presenters. We have a pretty funny shared history. We came from the two largest states in the country. He from Texas, me from Alaska, and it's been an interesting journey that we've shared over these past couple of years. Really exciting. So yeah, I'm an exited entrepreneur as well, out of. Born and raised in Chicago originally, then joined the Air Force, then had a startup, and then we had an exit in 2018, around the same time that Steve asked us to become organizers here. So it was a pretty good month, December 2018. And so, yeah, we've been fighting a good fight, trying to help remove barriers to entrepreneurship over at the Urban Accelerator X. It's a accelerator platform that we use for the specifically, I don't say specifically, but we definitely focus on people of color and women in the community here in Central Ohio to help them overcome the barriers to entrepreneurship through education, training, resources, in any way that we can. And so we've been doing that since January of 2020. And been fortunate enough to have made it through all the COVID stuff. I know it's still going on, but we're blessed to still be here and still pushing forward on this mission. And over the past, well, I guess it was a little bit before COVID, I first met Joseph. Was it before COVID or was it already after?
It was after COVID.
Okay.
I think it was in June or July got together.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago. And I was introduced to the pretty interesting and amazing skill that he has. I would say probably unique as well, especially in this area. So really looking forward to hearing this story and having him share the story with everyone here and in Facebook land. And like Steve said earlier, for those of you on Facebook, please come on over to columbus1mc.com. Jump on in the Zoom with us and you can ask the questions directly. But if you can't, for whatever reason, throw your questions in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that and we'll make sure we get those questions to Joe. And if you're watching the recording of this, please drop your questions in the comment section and we'll make sure we get those answers for you as well. So with that, I'm gonna pass on over to Steve.
All right. Yeah. So I guess I always forget to introduce myself. So I am Steve Flaherty. I'm the founder and CEO at Ecotech, a sustainable technology company headquartered out of the Entrepreneurial Center at Ohio Wesleyan University, the Delaware Entrepreneur Center at Ohio Wesleyan. So we call it the DEC-OWU. So enjoy working with a bunch of entrepreneurs up there, a lot of people doing amazing things there, and then get to build our own startup right out of the center. And so be part of the ecosystem here. So 1MC's that weekly dose of inspiration, right? The hump that gets you through the rest of the week. You come on here, you hear people just doing, crazy, awesome things, right? And so it's like that inspirational trip that you need to okay, gonna keep pushing through. Entrepreneurs never really stop, so Monday through Friday is not really a thing. We always say don't let the weekend be the weekend. So we enjoy it when we can, but glass is always trying to be filled. So this is one of those things that comes in for the refresh. and gives you that dose of entrepreneurship each week. So this one, as George alluded to, I'm excited to hear about too. So because it is a unique thing, something that you might not even know exists in Ohio. You could have lived here your whole life, like I have, for the most part, and still not know anything about it. So we will turn it over to our presenter this week, Joe Dorrian, with the Ohio School of Falconry. So Joe, take it away. I'm interested as heck to hear what you guys are doing and your take on Ohio business.
That's great. Thank you, guys. And George, Steve, Mark, Andrew, thank you for kind of letting us kind of join you this morning. So I am a lifelong Columbus native, born, bred and raised here, went to school here. My background has largely been in HR, leadership development in large corporations. And in 2013, we started to come up with the idea for the Ohio School of Falconry. We launched in 2014. And what the Ohio School of Falconry is I basically say it's an outdoor kind of experiential or adventure organization. That's the easiest way to kind of position it for folks who don't really know what we do. When we first started, the thought process was to use falconry, which is the oldest sport in the world. It's where you use hawks, eagles, falcons, and now owls to hunt with, but to use those birds and that sport as a metaphor for team building. So people come in and we talk about the importance of trust, and people learn how falconers work with their birds. We also started offering classes. So we were only the 6th School of Falconry in the United States when we opened in 2014. Most of the other ones were associated with resorts, and their approach to things was much different than ours. So being a freestanding center, our focus was on using the birds, not just for experiences where people would come in and be able to learn how to fly birds and have the experience of having a bird, fly 70 feet out of a tree to them, but also by being able to kind of take those raptors and our programming into schools, into libraries, and with church groups and with scout groups, and just doing all sorts of different work. So from that perspective, we've kind of branched out to, from an entrepreneurial spirit, thinking of new ways to being able to utilize the permit that we have with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that allows us to let people get hands-on. In the process, we, I think, created a new niche, and now you see that there's a lot more falconry schools out there across the United States. And it's kind of been interesting to see. We've helped about 10 of them get started, to see how they've embraced some of the things that we've done and then created new things on their own. And it's kind of a cross-pollination kind of effort. I guess I'd say one of the most unique things about this is that, I live with a bunch of birds of prey. So in my house, I have 2 barn owls. I have a European barn owl, North American barn owl. In my backyard, I have the world's largest species of owl, the Eurasian eagle owl, a male named Henson who lives back there, along with 2 peregrine falcons, 3 other falcons. We have 4 or 5 Harris hawks. We have an African auger buzzard, and we have a European common buzzard. So I live with those birds every day. We use them in all of our programming, and we try to be innovative in how we utilize those birds. So I think that tells you a little bit about it. I'm only 3 minutes in. I know I've got some extra time, but I'd like to go ahead and actually shift over if we could. And then, if you've got questions, I think a lot of it can be driven by what your questions are about what we do and how we do it.
Would you like me to show either of the videos right now?
Oh yeah, let's do that. So sorry about that. So if you could start with the video that has the red piece. This is a marketing piece that we did for Facebook, but it kind of shows you a little bit. It is pre-COVID, so nobody has masks on. But you'll notice a little bit about what we do when we take a group out and kind of how they experience having birds fly to them.
Okay, was that?
That's the red one. It has the red on the side with the.
I think that was not Granny. Wow, that was video 2, maybe. I might
it
get it
might
wrong.
have been video 2. Yeah.
I might get
If
it
not,
wrong.
we can
Let's
roll
see.
with it.
All right, do you guys see this? video
So
right
this
here?
is actually a program that we did for the Audubon Society. We do a lot of programming for organizations where we'll come in and we'll fly birds. So that's one thing that we do differently than a lot of organizations had done, was that they didn't necessarily free birds. And you can't experience the sport, I always say, unless you have a bird on the glove. So this is a marketing real quick for a Facebook piece. We usually take people out in the woods. So we're located, we have 3 locations in Ohio right now. One is at Camp Mary Orton here in Columbus. We also have a location in the Cleveland area at the Isaac Walton League in Medina, and then at Camp Kern in the Cincinnati-Dayton area.
All right, so I'll go ahead and play this one now. Wow, that just looks so majestic, man.
I love the look on people's face when they first have a bird fly to them. And so the other video, why don't you go ahead and show that other video that you had popped up first. That's when we go into organizations like the Audubon Society, or when we do big presentations in front of 200, 300 people. The idea is to get them engaged in different ways so that they can see that there's a great deal of trust that goes on in building relationships. And so this is what we call heads up buzz cut. It allows people to, I say, experience what it's like to be prey. So yeah, it's just always cool to kind of see. So from that perspective, we also work with summer camps. One of the things that we've done in our partnerships that I think is kind of key, we didn't start out this way, but I say that as an organization, we've kind of found our ethical voice of conservation. At first, when we first started, the goal was to build this entirely as, we teach classes on the weekends, but we would also do mainly, team building and leadership development. And that was very unique. It's still, nobody does that anywhere else in the world. But what we found was I got laid off before we got the school entirely up, and going. So this became my main revenue stream. So we started doing more classes, and the classes that we do on the weekends. And so we found that, you have that need to make sure you're having revenue come in so you can survive. But we had to be nimble. We had to think outside the box and think really in a broader perspective of what we wanted to accomplish. So as we did that, we found our ethical conservation voice, I say. And we found that, good conservation is good business. So we have partnerships with 8 different rehab centers here in the state of Ohio, which I think is kind of key to making sure that we have strong partnerships. And so we give back. Our tagline is conservation, preservation, education. It's conservation of birds of prey that we love in the wild place they live. Preservation of the sport of falconry, and both of those through education. We say education creates awareness, but in some cases, more importantly, it provides resources. And so how do we live out that conservation of the birds of prey that we love? We don't do rehab, so we support those that do. Over the last 3 years, we've given, 2 years ago, our goal was to give $4,000 in either direct funding or food donations, and we hit 10,000. Last year, our goal was to start at 10,000. And COVID hit. So we went back and said, we're going to do 4,000, and we ended up hitting 8,700. This year, our goal is 10,000, and we're already at 7,200. So the idea is, a lot of people tell me I'm not a very good business person, including to me, because I have a tendency to err on the side of overpaying for things. But I think it's good karma. It's my business. I run it how I want. And I run it like the case studies I used to read about in my graduate program. Take care of the people around you, make sure that you build trusting relationships, realize that, sometimes people are going to take advantage of you. That's, there are people like that out there, but you don't let that impact how you would treat other people. And I say the essence of what we do is we're a trust company. And so we have to live that. And that's how we kind of approach things is, building a relationship and making sure that we never rush people, because the experience is really what they're there for. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oh, you're good. Great. Two more videos, summer camp and Granny Wow.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead and show summer camp. So this is when we come in and work with our partners at Camp Mary Orton and at Camp Kern. Our goal is to plant seeds. So once again, I kind of said, once we were able to kind of make a living at this early on, the idea was to, we found our ethical voice. And so our goal is to plant seeds. And the idea of planting seeds, I don't want to get too much into the old parable thing, but, you throw out a lot of seeds and, hopefully some of them will fall on a very fertile ground. And what more fertile ground than kids? So the partnership we have with Camp Mary Orton and with Camp Kern down in the Cincinnati-Dayton area, and also the Isaac Walton League, but mainly these two camps, is these camps serve kids from across the spectrum, every single background. And so we have, in our partnerships with those camps, when we teach classes there, we give them a percentage off the top of everything that comes in. I think I pay twice of what the industry average is, but that's just a way of giving back, because that money goes right back into the community and programming. But we also do 3 to 7 free days of programs where we'll come in and we'll take a whole day and we'll just teach classes. And so we'll have kids, we'll talk about the different birds, we'll talk about the importance of what they can do in their neighborhoods to make a difference. We call it Conservation 1, 2, 3. Identify one bird that from today that we say, pun intended, you give a hoot about. Come up with 2 fun facts about that bird that you can tell other people about to make them give a hoot about it. And then basically, what are 3 things that you can do in your neighborhood around your house that will have an impact on that bird's ability to survive? And so that's the main conversation. And then we always cap it off with the experience, which is having a bird fly to the kid's glove.
Yeah, that kid was not scared at all. So
No,
I can't say I would have been the same.
I find sometimes the adults are more afraid than the kids are. We always love doing that, because it's, I always say, whether or not, and we call this woohoo or granny heads up buzz cut. So this young lady, grandma, actually came with her family, and she didn't have a great deal of mobility. We're actually, where we teach at, we try to make sure that from a programming standpoint, we're trying to utilize the birds in very different ways. And that's one thing that I think keeps us kind of ahead of the curve of the emerging schools that are copying everything that we do, is that once again, sometimes you get nervous about looking over your shoulder at, people that are trying to copy what you do. And I get sometimes a little bit caught up in that. And I have the people around me that remind me they're copying what we're doing. It's the innovation that changes things. So we try to provide programming where we can get folks with mobility disabilities, folks with all sorts of challenges to be able to have that bird fly. And this is one of those things. We're hopefully working towards having a partnership with some groups like Wounded Warriors, where we can help utilize the birds as part of ecotherapy for folks who are either struggling with PTSD or I don't know if it can be applied towards aspects of substance abuse and the challenges of coming back from some of those experiences. So we're trying to find innovative ways that we can use to help people, build themselves back up, have trust, faith, hope, and build skills. So it's just very unique. So I'll let you go ahead and see Woohoo.
Okay, you're gonna hold your hand up really high, right above her head. Okay?
Mima is wearing the GoPro, and Rocky is about to dive bomb her.
Hi, Rocky. Yoo-hoo. Nice.
I love that video. So that's a little bit about what we do. I think one of the things that when COVID hit, that I was kind of most proud of was, COVID hit everybody, and it did us just as with everybody. Even though we're outdoors, we had to shut down for 2.5 months. When we were able to open back up, we listed all the different COVID practices that we're following, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're outside, limiting the number of people, masking up, putting surgical gloves on before you put the gauntlet on, things like that, sanitizing bathrooms. But every single raptor organization across the state, mostly rehabbers, lost every single booking that we had for summer camps, church groups, libraries, nursing homes, which probably would have kind of canceled anyways. So what we did was we had to, I sat there going, this could be the end of things. But then, I was watching, I forget what I was watching. It might've been Shark Tank. And, and Shark Tank was, believe it or not, the impetus for why I really wanted to start the company, because my kids and my wife and I would watch Shark Tank as kind of a Friday night thing to do. And I got so excited about all this idea of starting a business. And so we were watching Shark Tank, and they were talking about in turbulent times, you have to be innovative. And so I was looking around at, distilleries making hand sanitizer and things like that. So I thought, you know what, if we can't go to the camp, we'll go to your front yard. So we came up with a program, three-tiered program, and we call it Hawk House Calls. And so we would literally take the birds and do the program we would do at the summer camp on your front lawn. And we do a 3-bird, 4-bird, or a 5-bird program, and travel around the state taking the birds from place to place to place. And we found out that it was incredibly successful, so that it actually has become part of our mainstay, to where we still book quite a few Hawk House Calls. We're starting another one called Raptor Roadshow, where we'll actually bring bigger groups of birds out and actually do bigger displays with multiple birds flying around at the same time. So.
That's, again, it's like one of those things, you didn't know existed, here. So, it's really cool to see and stand up a business over this. Now, I got to ask, you mentioned, corporate leadership, HR, all that, and then you go and, create this business. So there's got to be like a past interest or something that you got exposure to falconry,
Sure.
Was it a long time ago or whatever, but how was this an interest? And then that is like, hey, I'm going to create a business around this love, this passion or whatever around falconry.
Sure. So the passion for it, for a lot of falconers, it starts when they're younger. So they've had a book or seen a movie. For most falconers, there was a book called My Side of the Mountain that was read to us when they were in 5th grade, about a little boy who runs off, lives in the woods, and captures a peregrine falcon, and it hunts rabbits for him and helps him survive. And so for me, that was it at the age of 12. The joke always was that I carried a little leather glove around for 2 years with a whistle, just in case I ran across somebody's escaped falconry bird. It was going to come home and live in my garage in the space I had set up for the pony that never arrived for Christmas, so I always say football and girls got in the way. And when I finished my master's at Ohio State in workforce development, I sat there and I was like, what did I used to be interested in? I had gotten a gift card from somebody, and I said falconry. I pulled a book, and that's all she wrote. So that's the inspiration for it. How I came up with the idea for starting the school was it's illegal in the United States to utilize to actually handle a bird of prey, believe it or not, if you're not a falconer or a raptor rehabber or raptor educator. Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So at the time, there were 5 schools of falconry out there, most of them at resorts like Greenbrier or Broadmoor, Biltmore, Equinox, Homestead, Hershey. Not that I'm tracking my competition or anything, but these falconry schools basically charged a premium of $375 to do a falconry program and hold a bird and have a bird fly to them. And I thought that was ludicrous. And so we were kicking around the idea of how do we start a school that allows us to take our vocation, working with leaders and with, dysfunctional teams. And, that was my niche area of practice, was working with highly dysfunctional teams, and try to bring those pieces about trust and about, the metaphor of falconry together. So vocation and avocation. And I couldn't figure out how to do that uniquely. So I was driving back from Grady Memorial Hospital. I worked most recently for Ohio Health for 12 years. I was driving back from Grady Memorial Hospital. And I stopped outside of Camp Mary Orton, where I used to do team building when I was working with Huntington. And I said, oh, there's where I used to do team building. Wouldn't it be cool to do falconry as part of an effort with team building? And immediately everything just kind of flashed before me. It's one of those moments of clarity where I say I was given a gift, and you kind of see that whole vision of how things should kind of be laid out and all the possibilities. And so that was the inspiration for it. And it kind of fell into place. And, there are certain things certain times where I sometimes get out of what I say is the lane of what that initial vision was. And, things happen that kind of nudge me back into what that original vision was of what I was supposed to do. And we continue to grow. Every time I question, I think we all as entrepreneurs have questions of, is what we're doing right? Is it going to be successful? We're always kind of concerned about, especially if somebody goes, that's a great idea, I want to do that. And you can't control that. I found that's been one of my biggest learnings, is to let go of that fear, because when I react out of fear, I'm never at my best. And my best has always been to innovate, to be original, to be unique, and be creative. And that's what we kind of continue to do. So, those partnerships with the different organizations, I think has been key for us in our growth, because it allows us to take our programming up to the Cleveland area, down to the Cincinnati area. We had tried to, even though I'm a big Browns fan, we had still tried to reach out to the Pittsburgh area. We were at a place called Nemacolin and Woodlands Resort for a year, and then they had a change in leadership. And so we're working right now with some folks in Ligonier, PA, to see if there's a possibility of doing programming there. So constantly looking ahead instead of worrying about what's happening behind.
Yeah, no, some great entrepreneurial nuggets in there. I mean, I guess, from afar, it's like I've seen, falcons and other birds of prey on display at sporting events or whatever.
Yep.
You see them, the ceremonial, drop and fly in, to the glove and stuff. But it never really, thought about it in the sense, that you're talking about, right? So the team building and leadership, it's like, you get the stereotypical, hey, we're all going to a ropes course, guys, and we're going to do trust falls, and it's going to be a great time of team building in the woods. And so you're taking, the corporate experience, and the team building aspect and everything, and throwing it in with a passion. That's a lot of times what where some of the best companies form, is around real world skill set. And then passion, right? Because one without the other is kind of tough. So it's very interesting, how it's stood up there. Your business model, I think, is easy enough to understand, but kind of talk about the different groups and how you do that.
So and one of the first one of the things that you were bringing up when you were talking about some aspects of that, one of the biggest learnings for me was to accept, I always taught, about personality styles and about, understanding, what your strengths are and things like that. And, there's nothing like starting your own business where you're relying on yourself and your family to make your living, for you to really become acutely aware of all of those things that are not your strengths. And, it's easier to teach it as part of a corporation where everyone goes, aha, oh, wow, that's great. And then they go back to an environment that potentially, they can hide those strengths through relying on others or whatever. As an entrepreneur, I realize I'm not necessarily a get it done kind of person. Our joke is that I suffer from JFL disease, which means I'm just flippin' lazy at times. Sometimes you have to grant yourself that grace of, after a hard week, if I just want to sit down and watch TV and have a sandwich and, not constantly be going 100 miles an hour, I have to give myself that grace. I have to forgive myself for not necessarily achieving, everything that I have now within the first 3 years. Everybody has a different pace. But as we start to get bigger, I have to surround myself with people that have that drive. And we've started to do that. In relationship to the business plan, when we first started out, the thought process was we were going to use the school as the foundation or launching pad for team building sessions and, leadership development and all of this stuff. And that was my grand plan. There was going to be that. Then there was going to be I was going to write a book that was going to be kind of a Ken Blanchard style book. And then I was going to start, it was all about trust. And what I found out very, very quickly was, one, my JFL, I'm not a driver. So I was trying to focus on how am I going to get the stuff I needed. I was still at that time trying to get back into a large organization because, in the family, my wife was concerned, are we going to be able to make a living, da, 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 da. And for a year, I was up for some pretty big, openings, but they'd always either go the person inside or pull the position. And, in the meantime, the school classes, we doubled, tripled, doubled, and then COVID hit. But that was our revenue cycle, triple, double. So my wife at one point said, you know what, we're doing pretty good with this. Why don't we just make this our main focus? And so that was when we had a kind of a departure from me pushing just for this one thing in the vision and opening things up. That's where the ethical kind of conservation mindset of where I started to kind of say, we're doing well enough with the classes. Let's start doing some other things. So, that's when we started going to summer camps and, libraries, and started refining our voice as to what is it that we want to talk about. The idea of planting seeds, the idea of, the ethical practice of the sport of falconry, but also making sure that you support rehab centers and things like that. So our revenue channels are classes on the weekends. That is our largest revenue stream, to be quite honest. And we continue to try to innovate how we do that. A couple of years ago, we were doing photo sessions just like other people would be, so Raptor rehab centers or other schools, hey, we'll stake all of our birds out and then photographers can come in and take pictures and da, 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 da. And lo and behold, how do we differentiate ourselves? And so I came up with the idea. We had a partnership with a group called Ironwood Wolves. So we came up with the idea of feather and fur. So we actually do a photo session, a day of, and we go over the top. We have snacks, we have drinks, we have a swag raffle. We do all this fun, entertaining stuff. But people come in, we spend 2 hours with all these different birds, 15 different species of birds. Then we fly them. We fly owls, we fly hawks, and people get all these great pictures. And then we come back, we have a little swag raffle for a bunch of stuff that's on the table, t-shirts, hats, all sorts of stuff. And then we come back and we have an Arctic wolf and we have a timber wolf, and they go out and they'll take pictures of these animals, positioned and posed and things like that. It's been incredibly successful. We're doing 3 this year and they're almost all sold out. So we have the classes. We have the hawk house calls, which would be similar to what we do at summer camps and at libraries and nursing homes and things like that. And then one of the things that we're trying to look at now is, and this is kind of our struggle, if you will, what I'm being most perplexed with, we're at a stage now where we need to build, and whether it's in a continued partnership where we're at right now, Camp Mary Orton, which has some limitations in how far we can grow, but they've been a wonderful partner with us, or whether it's another place. We're looking at, do we buy land? I hate to leave the circle of 270, but and then maybe a potential partnership with a park and rec center that would allow us to build a true bird of prey center. Our goal and the vision has emerged from just being a falconry school to being the most amazing bird of prey center anywhere in the world. That's focused on hands-on education where people can really experience flight. So 3 years ago, my wife actually came up with a great idea, and she's become very engaged with the business. And so she saw this thing called Air Camp, which is the U.S. Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, has a camp for middle schoolers called Air Camp. And she suggested that the program that we do on the nature of flight might fit in nicely with that. So we approached them, they love the idea. So we come in and we actually teach the first day that these middle schoolers come in. They learn about designing wings and the physics of flight. It's all STEM based. And we come in the second day on Huffman Prairie, where the first manned flight ever occurred. And we basically take all of the STEM based education that they learned about the physics of flight, and we apply it to what did the Wright brothers actually see on Huffman Prairie that helped them, come up with things like the warping wing. We teach about Bernoulli's effect, angle of attack. We teach about, you know, the four forces that impact life in such a different way. And that, I think, is one of those things that for me was the inspiration to say, the future of this organization is not just a falconry school, because anybody can do that. The future is taking that idea of planting seeds and growing it to a much bigger level, to where the center itself helps utilize birds of prey, which is just not hawks, falcons, eagles, owls. It's things like crows and storks and, you know, seagulls and anything that eats meat, and utilize that as a way to get kids and adults to really understand the nature of flight and trust and relationship in a very hands-on way. That will impact, because everything's still a business, that will impact other revenue streams, meaning that we want to be able to control a space where we can do programs for up to 400 people. And that would allow us to also have revenue generation from weddings and from, you know, corporate entities that want to come in for, you know, utilizing that space for other things. It'll allow us to do continued programming in you know, instead of going out to groups, have groups come in with us. We're somewhat limited in that right now because, you know, when groups want to come in the summer, Camp Mary Orton has 300 kids running around. So, you know, their primary focus is to serve, you know, their groups they already have. So our biggest challenge right now is to determine about that idea of how we move forward in our future growth, because we're at a very particular place where, you know, if we plant down roots, it's going to have to be long term. And then also the for-profit or non-profit equation. I used to think that we were required to be for-profit to have this U.S. Fish and Wildlife permit that we have. In fact, I was told that by the gentleman who was previously in charge of the Midwest region. It turns out I had another gentleman I'm helping start a school up near Chicago who talked to the new guy, and he said, no, I don't care if you're a nonprofit or for-profit. So all of a sudden now we have that option of being able to keep our permit, falconry school permit, and operate as a nonprofit. So trying to figure out all those benefits and how do we manage that? That's for me the thing that's kind of my the question, because we're at a stage where I don't want to go in and, you know, I don't know what it costs, but I'm fearful of the cost of overextending ourselves in, you know, tons of legal fees to just answer certain basic questions, you know, about what's the best way to approach it. But then, you know, once we make that decision, you know, how do we best move forward to ensure that we can build this growth, you know, not build this growth, but grow and build what we want to accomplish. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is there a reason that you couldn't do both and have the school as the nonprofit and then birds of prey, you know,
The center.
attraction, you know, type thing as a for-profit?
So the concerns, so we have a lot of people, you'd be surprised who comes through our classes. Obviously I won't go in and name a lot of people, but we get a lot of movers and shakers and some, you know, highfalutin people that, you know, I kind of ask questions of, and they're more than happy to help. One person was from the Cleveland area, and they have a very, very large nonprofit that they're, you know, millions and millions of dollars. And I was posing the question of, you know, I know that, I mean, when I first started this business, you know, I don't know what I don't know about business. So I was talking to my accountant. I said, I got a great idea. I'm going to buy food and I can take it as a deduction, and then I'll donate it to the rehab centers and I get another deduction. And he went, yeah, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I thought, but this person who ran this big nonprofit was saying, you know, it's not good to be head of a for-profit and a nonprofit that actually do business with each other. Said that's really not ethical or not practical. So the idea is are you a nonprofit that has a for-profit aspect to it? And he said, you know, that really kind of draws the attention of, you know, the IRS, saying there might be things that might be going on there. They said, especially if the for-profit makes more money than the nonprofit. He said it might be much better to become a like we are now with the nonprofit wing. And then we kind of operate the bird of prey center out of that. And then the school itself will function. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas, and that's where we're at, is, you know, trying to sit down and figure all those things out. We're bringing, you know, new birds in and still continuing to grow, but that is the biggest question for me is to have, a center of our own with a space that we can do winter classes, and do, all the things that we want to do. So we're getting there, but it's just one of the perplexing questions that I have that's been in the back of my mind for a while.
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, something that you put the plan and analyze the cost and stuff around, and what type, size, space, all that.
It's
Okay.
and that's one of those things. I'm ashamed to admit it, that I've largely grown this business without a business plan, or without doing a lot. I still up here do a lot of the analysis of what I think, but I haven't formalized a lot of the pieces parts, which is, I know, a big. But our growth has been, we haven't gone into debt at all, so we carry no debt. It's about growing. I promised my wife we'd never go into debt in relationship to this, and we're big enough at the point where we're going to have to take on debt to accomplish what we want to do. I think she's okay with that, because she's seen the growth and the building of the business, and so that's good. It's all partnership. That's another thing I've learned is, your family, when you're an entrepreneur, it's not just about you, it's about your family as well. And you have to make sure that you take care of your family and do the things that you need to do without being so focused on just, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. So, having the grace to be able to see, what their needs are. So that's been a big learning piece for me as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's always the conundrum, right? So juggling the world of providing an entrepreneurship and having that business, draw, basically, I mean, for literal survival, right?
Yeah.
But then also making sure that you're home and paying attention and watching, what the true part that makes life happy, right?
Yeah.
It's like the purpose. So
I think Andrew had a question, Steve.
yeah, go ahead,
Well,
Andrew.
A couple things, Steve. I think you're cutting yourself short by saying you don't have a business plan. It sounds like your family is your business consultants, and they're driving the plan. So I think you do have a business plan, even if it may not be on paper. But the way you reference your family and your wife, it sounds like you've got a plan. And the other thing, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but Cleveland Natural History Museum. I don't know if there's a partnership opportunity there, or if it's not really work. That would be one thing. And the other is we take walks in our Cuyahoga Valley parks often. And last week we were at Nature's Realm, which is outside of Akron. And they have a huge facility, a visitor center that I think is mostly empty. And I don't know if there's an opportunity for you to partner with the Cuyahoga Valley Metro Parks or something, because I think they have, and this is a gorgeous facility that seems like it was way underutilized. For whatever it's, those are my
the Cuyahoga Valley, the Metro Park, there's a lady named Jen Brumfield who's there. And they do a bird of prey day. And for the last, not COVID year, but for a number of years, we've been their main presenters. So they've got gorgeous space up there. The Museum of Natural History is a very unique organization. It's amazing. We've helped them get some birds that they needed to get in the past. We've partnered, one of the rehab centers that we support is Lake Erie Nature and Science Center. But what is the name of the place in Akron again?
It's a place we walk. It's Nature's Realm.
Nature's Realm. I'll follow up with that.
And they have a visitor center that's, I mean, we just briefly went inside.
Yeah.
But it's a huge, beautiful facility. And I don't know if there's an opportunity for you to work with them.
That's great, though. That's a great seed for me to follow up on. I appreciate that. Thank you. Nature's Realm.
I wrote that down for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, anybody else have questions? I'm only on one screen, so I don't want to hog the mic.
Even questions about the birds, I'm more than happy to answer.
Well, so that I was going to ask that early on. So, like, I don't, I don't know. I mean, I know, birds of prey and the different types of things, but like how long's a falcon live? Like how long's an owl live? Like
Yeah.
obviously they're super intelligent, and can obviously be trained to do things and all that. But I mean, kind of give us some perspective on the bird side
So
for sure.
the first thing I would respond to is when you say super intelligent, that's all in perspective. So people think owls are incredibly intelligent, and they're not. If you had 100 birds, 100 raptors in front of you, and 25 of them were owls, they would fill, and you ranked them from 1 through 100, smart to the least smart, owls would be 76 through 100. They're literally not that smart at all. I love them, but they are not real intelligent, and it's not their fault. Their eyes, a lot of people think they can see in the pitch darkness. They can see it like it's super bright. Their eyesight is only partially better than ours. So in pitch blackness, they can see about as well as we can at dawn and dusk. So it's their hearing that allows them to find things. But their eyes are actually these long tubes. If you were to take your right hand and make a fist, take your left hand and make a fist, and stand next to your eyes. Go ahead and see that right now. Just like that. If you were an owl, this is how big your eyeballs would be. So humans, our eyeballs take up 5% of the space in our skull. Owls, those eye tubes take up 75 to 80% of the space in there. Yeah. So from that perspective, when we teach about the nature of trust, you have to understand that people come to the table with different levels of ability to trust because of past experiences, all these different pieces parts. So you have to understand where a person's what we would call in training entering behavior knowledge is. And so, understanding what a person's gone through. With owls, we know that they have some challenges in terms of, long-term memory. So what we do is we have to start very early, show them what we want them to do in the first 6 months, and then keep doing it. But, in how long do they live? 90% of all first-year birds of prey will die in their first 6 months in the wild due to man-made things. And so in captivity, obviously life's a lot better, but there still is there's still going to be mortality issues. Sometimes things that you can't see because birds of prey naturally don't show, I got a leg that hurts me or my stomach hurts or whatever. Because in the wild, if you show weakness, it means instant death. So with that in mind, sometimes the birds, you're constantly checking birds over every day, trying to make sure you're, testing things, looking at things, seeing if there's any issues, but you still sometimes lose birds. A Harris hawk, which in the wild probably would live, if it makes it to its second birthday, probably live to 5 to 7. The oldest in captivity was 36. Falcons live into their early 20s. We have a Eurasian eagle owl. It was one of the first in Ohio. It's the size of a bald eagle. It's the world's largest species of owl. And Henson will probably live until his mid-50s. He's 4 right now. So, these birds, varying levels of how do you say, life expectancy, but each of them, like the Harris's hawk that we utilize for flying, that's the one bird saw flying. We have 8 of those. And Harris hawks have the same level of intelligence as a crow, which is about a 7-year-old kid. So they have 32 known vocalizations. They can communicate with you pretty well. And they literally all have different personalities. And I say pretty much any animal, has a personality. We just sometimes don't see it because we're not looking for it. But yeah, so it's pretty interesting. We use the proper tool for the proper bird or tool for the proper application. So with Harris hawks, because they're so intelligent and they don't have the like red-tailed hawks have like really quick reactions. So they're quick to anger. So if they took offense to you doing something, they might try to grab you real quick. Harris hawks are much more human-like in their behavior, and they're kind of laid back, and they're just kind of like, hey, what's going on? They make the perfect bird for interaction with humans. And then over the course of a number of years, we've been doing this 8 years, we've kind of rifled through birds. So we'll buy birds, bring them in, train them. If they don't immediately demonstrate the behaviors that we want, we give them away. We bring in a new bird, et cetera, et cetera. So from that perspective, we've gone through quite a few birds to make sure that our birds are bomb-proof. Because when you're working with the public, we've never had any issues whatsoever. And largely that's because we have great staff. All the people that work with me were either my apprentices or were trained by some of the best. Katie and Stephanie are our main instructors. Amy up in Cleveland is coming back on board. Octavio, who was one of my apprentices right now. They all do an incredible job, and that's the future. Is I say I want to get to the point where I can step away from the daily. I did that for 5 years and start standing back and saying, okay, here's where we need to start doing this, start doing that. It's just, are we at that stage of growth where we can, have me not doing some of that daily, piece. It's just like any entrepreneur, you got to, sometimes you got to go out and be on the platform doing the work, wowing people. Sometimes you're doing the sales, and sometimes you're, trying to figure out what's going wrong with your computer.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
We're coming up at the top of the hour or bottom of the hour, however we phrase that. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to do the ask to the community. I know we talked prior to the presentation about some things that, you could use some help with. I was totally expecting, we normally have some students from the Entrepreneurial Business Law Center at Ohio State. And
Sure.
Today we didn't, unfortunately, but I want to get that request to them. I will do that. So I know that that's
That'd be
one of your
great.
requests. So what else do you think could be useful from the community to help you along?
Sure. I think there's a lot that I don't know that I don't know. So it's going to sound really, really stupid. I've learned to kind of, self-expose, if you will. I'm not afraid of basically, bearing my soul and letting people know what I don't know. That vulnerability is kind of key. So everything I learned about trying to start a business pretty much came from Shark Tank. It's, just listening to these different pieces, parts. So, what are some resources for me in terms of, are there, and I know that Urban Accelerator has a number of programs that'll probably become very, very helpful for me. But sometimes even just the idea of, when I hired people and I made them 1099, my background, before I went into training and development, I was for 10 years an underwriter auditor for workers' comp. So I understand some of the basics of contracting type stuff, subcontractor, contractor relationships, but just different things such as, how do you structure aspects of, employees and, in the relationship to the nonprofit for-profit piece, what's the best way to structure those pieces? It's just some of the basic knowledge so that I can, when I go in with an attorney, that if I hire an attorney to sit down, that I'm not having to ask the basic questions. I kind of am a little bit, understanding of all the different pieces, parts. And then if you have anybody who knows how to train a bald eagle without getting your nose bitten off, I'd love to have someone there if you have somebody. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think we can, through the Urban X Accelerator and the different resources that the U has, can connect you with some stuff. And the Kaufman Foundation and the Kaufman website has a lot of resources, nationwide, just to kind of go. It's a great landing spot that then, goes out. But yeah, there's a lot of different tools and SBDC. If you haven't worked with them, so they've got, it's the Small Business Development Centers in particular. So SBA sponsors the SBDCs all across the country. So in the state of Ohio, Columbus State, for the main part, runs the SBDCs. So the universities each kind of like take on a role under the SBA for different things. So like Ohio University runs PTAC, which is don't know the acronym, what it stands for, but it's basically the getting government contracts. So, and there could be some stuff there that might be a good one to do a capability statement with. And then these wildlife centers and some of the government organizations may be a revenue source, a place, to do. So, but yeah, SBDC is a great starting point. You go in and tell what your business is doing, and they're there to help you, and they're funded by the SBA for the most part. They've got some premium services that they charge for, but for the most part, their services are paid for by the Small Business Administration.
Good to know. Thank you.
But so you said one stat that I just want to repeat real quick. You said that the life expectancy of birds of prey in the wild, 90% of them will die.
Die in their first 6 months due to man-made things.
Wow.
Yep, a lot of people don't realize that. You get hit by cars.
Right.
They fly into fences, fly into windows. They get electrocuted. They eat. A lot of people know of DDT in the past that has basically killed off the peregrine falcon, the bald eagle. But even today, Roundup, herbicides, pesticides, things like that. Well, they won't initially kill. I mean, rodenticides do, but they still build up in the bird's prey because they're eating all the other birds that eat the seeds that have it on it. And that toxin level buildup reduces their immune system so that they die of things they normally wouldn't die of. And then the big one is feral cats, outdoor cats and feral cats. A scratch from one cat, or whether it's a little sparrow all the way up to a 14-pound golden eagle, will kill that bird within 24 to 48 hours if they're not given antibiotics almost immediately. And so I mean, it's pretty tragic, but life's not easy in the wild.
Yeah. Wow. So, well, Joe, we appreciate you coming in and sharing a very interesting business that you've got. So if you want to learn how you can help, learn about the birds and protect the birds, and like I said, that stat is staggering and very interesting, but then also connect with Joe, possibly do some of the services and the team building and the other aspects. Go and find the Ohio School of Falconry. So we appreciate you, Joe, and we'll definitely stay in touch. And we always like to do refreshes. So 6 months, a year out type thing. Come back and kind of give a refresh of where you're at and what's changed and all that. So interested in watching the journey. So appreciate the time. So
thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Wednesday, 9 a.m. at 1 Million Cups, Columbus. Take care.